Hello, this is Lisa LeRose on PRNFM, Connect to Love, with Michael J. Russ here on the Vibrant Living Network. And today we are joined by a very special guest, Scott Robinson, who had been with us before. Scott is very, very unique. He is a clairvoyant, a clairsentient, a medium, a medical intuitive, and an empath. He has had this gift since childhood. He has developed his own healing modality called life stream healing, which is a method of healing which uses a form of quantum entanglement energies, which is, to me, very exciting. So Albert Einstein, who most of us know who he is, said, "People like us who believe in physics know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion," which I absolutely love that quote because, you know, the world that we live in, that we experience, is not really real, a lot of people say. They say that it's a mental construct that we filter through our physical senses. As human beings, we transmit energies through our thoughts. Everybody does it. It doesn't matter who you are. We have this energy that is an oscillation. It has a law of attraction. It has a law of reciprocity with it. So whatever we put out can be connected to, which is why we're so excited to have, Scott here on Connect to Love, because we're going to really delve into that today. Quantum physicists believe that in the field of the wave, our thoughts and beliefs work not only spatially but also temporally, which means that they spread out in time and space. So, we're going to talk a little bit about that, how Scott uses his gifts to connect to the past, to the future, and to sort of venture into that realm. So welcome, Michael, and welcome, Scott. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. In science, people have they've developed what they know for people that are deaf, these cochlear implants, and they're electrodes that stimulate the auditory nerves inside the ear, and it sort of triggers things. Now, for somebody that's blind, they sense things from another perspective, and those are the two senses we think about most often as far as communication. But we also have that sense of feeling, and I'd love to kind of open this up and sort of ask the broader question, do you think that we can create our future through the power of thoughts, and what can the past tell us about that? I'd love to sort of delve into that today. So, welcome, Michael, and welcome, Scott. And, Scott has had a really wonderful communication with Michael. So I'd love for you, Michael, to kind of kick this off and, let you, the questions you've been dying to ask Scott.
Well, I think you just kind of laid it out there with regard to the past, the present, future, and how our thoughts impact that. And before we go any further, though, I'd really love for Scott to kind of give our audience a clear idea of what he does, and how he works with his gifts to help others, to be of service to others. Scott, could you do that?
Sure, I can, Michael. It's good to talk to you again, and Lisa, it's good to talk to you again, of course. Awesome. As I started out my psychic work, per se, I've always been psychic. I started mainly using my clairvoyance, which to me it goes along with what we're talking about. It's a field effect. And so to me, I look in my mind's eye and I see a scene, a picture, if you will, and I associate that with my interpretation. But I see people's auras, their energy fields around. And that aura contains colors, it contains symbols. And by reading that, I get an idea of what's going on with the person, and it generally directs the reading in whatever direction they need to go. But when you talk about the past, the present, and the future, really the field we live in, the etheric body of the universe, if you will, the energy body of the universe, is one huge field that we all exist in. That's why it doesn't matter if you're on the other side of the universe or right next door. We are connected at every moment of every single second of every day. Right? We are absolutely 100% connected. And when you can learn to tap into that a little bit, then you feel that you get ideas, you get insights associated with that. The past, the present, and the future all come together as one, the eternal now, if you may have heard that term before. And everything is one. And, the physicists have been telling us that we're all one. We're heading back toward the one. That's what I see, and that's what I believe. And as we get more in touch with that, the need for typical standard clairvoyance, I say, kind of is superseded by just the intuitive knowing of things. And so that's kind of how I work. When I look at someone, I will look at their energy field, and I'll see what I see, and I'll give my interpretation of that. And then generally insights just start pouring in at that point because I'm completely connected with that person. And that's how it kind of works for me. That's how it's always worked.
So do you feel things in your body? You talked about getting a mind impression, or sometimes, when you're tuning into that person, do you sometimes feel what's going on around them or the people that are around them?
Absolutely. I'm an empath, and there's different levels or different types. I'm a physical empath. I can feel oftentimes people's pains. I'm certainly an emotional empath, so I know what they're feeling. That might be my strongest suit because even as a child, I would walk around a bunch of people and I would know exactly what they're feeling, and it's almost like reading their mind because most people are more feelers than mental, right? And so whatever they're feeling is kind of how they're thinking. So I can do that, yeah, and that helps me on my medical intuitive stuff because as I tune into their feelings, physical and emotional, then I begin to get a picture of their actual body, and it's hard to explain, but it's like I'm looking at their body in an energetic form, and I can see where there's problems here and there, where there's energy blockages, where disease exists, things like that. And I'll see that first clairvoyantly, and then I'll get an intuitive understanding of what that means and why it's happening. And you can take that all the way to the spiritual level, but for the most part, people just want to know, well, what's going on, where is it going on, and how can I fix it, And so being able to see it, for me, it's all associated with the fact that we are all part of one huge energetic force that substands everything that we are. It substands the universe. And because of that, any one of us, when you start practicing that type of attunement, you can tune into anything, anywhere, at any time.
That's wonderful. Really? So I'm curious, and especially for our audience members who may not be that familiar with an aura, so when you look at somebody and you see this energy field around them, this aura, what does that look like to you, and what do the different colors mean to you, and how does that may be different for other people that are intuitive or clairvoyant?
That's a good question, too. And for me, when I start tuning into somebody, I'll, get quiet and usually close my eyes, not always. But I go to this other space, and I look at them, and energetically I'll get shifts of colors moving through it's almost like an ovoid field, almost a spherical field of energy. And I'll get colors that flow through there. I'll also get symbols, usually in the form of like everyday things, animals, etc., that tell me things about what's going on with this person. Like a lot of times people don't understand. If I look at somebody's aura and I see a little dog jumping up on them, which I will, that means somebody's lying to them.
Oh my goodness!
And I can always tell if it's a male or a female. And I like dogs. Don't get me wrong. And the first time I started coming across it, it's what? And then I noticed, and so it means somebody's lying to you, depending on the size of the dog. So sometimes I'll see a little teeny dog. And so it's just the typical day-to-day stuff that we all deal with, just, I won't call it lies, probably too strong a word, just not being completely straightforward or forthwith. But sometimes I'll look at somebody and I'll see a wolf jumping on them. I say, oh, my goodness, somebody is really, telling a whopper to this person. They're really being dishonest with this person. And again, intuitively, I generally know if that's a male or a female that's doing it, or their approximate age, usually within a year or two or three. and things like that. That's just one instance. There's another. For instance, if I see a cat, if I'm looking at your aura, and I'll see this color, like I'll see orange filtering through. That's kind of a feeling, thinking person right there. They feel very deeply, but they translate it into mentality, let's say. That's a good, strong color. Then I'll see blues, yellows. Yellow, I always think, is more of a thinking color as well, spiritually thinker, pragmatic thinker. You get purples. Sometimes you get dark bands in the aura. That's usually depression. I will say in the case when I look at somebody, it's always depression of some sort. And it usually exists as a heaviness near the bottom of this ovoid that I'm looking at, okay? And depending on how much is there and how dark it is, you can kind of get an idea of how deeply depressed a person is. We all suffer from depression from time to time. I don't believe anybody says they've never had it happen. Good for them if it's true. I just don't believe it. We all struggle with that from time to time. And so depending on what I see there, there's other things like if I see a cat curled at somebody's feet, that tells me that they're doing something over and over and over again that's not suiting them well, right? They're making a mistake on some level. They're repeating some behavior either in relationships, business. It could be anything, in personal life, eating. But they're continuing to do it like a cat has 9 lives. Just goes over and over, goes in a big circle. So when you get there, you're kind of stuck. Now, we all have issues with that from time to time, but that can be a good indicator of what's going on in a person's life. That, amongst other things, there's certainly a lot of other symbols that I get. Those are 2 very common ones that tell me a lot pretty quickly. You know, I'll get birds flying through the top of a person's aura. That tells me they've got a message coming to them from on high, from their higher selves. Depending on the type of bird and how high it's flying, it tells me if it's an intuitive message or a higher mental message, etc. It kind of gives me an idea of that. And that'll come out in the reading, what that message is intended to be. As I read somebody, you know, the reading kind of takes on a life of its own, a direction that it's meant to go from a soul level. And so I just let that flow. And the people can ask me any questions specifically as they want, and I'll answer that and see it. But it kind of tends to flow where they, on some level, need that input.
That's amazing.
Beautiful. That is amazing. I got to ask you a question, though.
Sure.
Yeah, it does.
Go ahead.
When it comes to auras, does someone's aura change based on what's going on in their life day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good question. That's true. I see that a lot. You can look, if somebody's upset or they're very angry, they'll get a big red streak in their aura. Sounds pretty typical, but to me that's what I see. But I can also see this red streak, and I can tell whether it's coming into them or if it's being generated by them themselves. In other words, are they angry at someone or at some situation they're in, or is somebody else angry at them? And that's the most damaging kind, I guess you would say. We all go through moments of anger, which we deal with. We learn to deal with one way or another. But if somebody's projecting that anger towards us, it goes directly into the aura, and it does have an effect. And a lot of times people say, well, I don't know, and we'll talk about it, and I'll be able to tell usually if it's a male or female and who it is. They go, oh, yeah, and then the situation will come up, and they can resolve it, at least within their own mind, right? And so that's one way of dissipating that. When someone's aura changes from day to day, yeah, they can be on a day where they're really, I guess you'd say, more spiritual than other days, highly connected. And when they do that, I'll see a lot of really a special certain type of blue color that's really hard to explain. It's not like I can't define this color blue. I just know what it is when I look at it, right? And I'll see things like that. You can see people together, their auras kind of match, will tend to melt together sometimes if they're very close. Sometimes I'll notice, like in couples, one person's aura is trying to move away and the other one's trying to grab hold of, right? And that creates a conflict, and that's generally what the conflict is going on between these two people. And so when you get to the bottom of that, it gives information that people can use and think about.
So
that's cool.
Now, do you find when, the people that come to you for a reading, so if you see something like that in their aura field, and you try to not help them navigate through it, do you find that some people are accepting or people are in denial, or how do you kind of help them untangle that so that they can eliminate that in their aura so they can be more in balance? Is there a way?
Yeah, there is. I mean, I didn't say a lot of times when I look at a people's aura, and I hate to use the word demon, but there's bad energies out there that becomes personified, and by that it means it seems to take on almost human characteristics. And that can attach itself to us at any time. And we all have these attachments, these entity attachments. Sometimes they can become quite noticeable, and they actually cause a big disruption in the person's life. They'll generally go to a part of the body that's weak anyway. It's where it's easiest for them to attach. And whenever I see one of these entities, I'll ask the person, I see this entity on you. It's causing you some problems. Can I just take it off of you? Which to me is very easy to do. And so I'll remove that entity. And oftentimes people either feel a tingling, they'll feel a hot and cold sensation. But generally speaking, they'll say, after you took that away, I started feeling better. I wasn't aggravated. I didn't have this. Because that's what they do. This is what that type of energy does. Now, as some people unknowingly and some knowingly project that type of energy upon other people. As we probably all know, right? And so there are people out there that you feel more comfortable with or less comfortable with. On some level, energetically, there's a conflict between you and that other person. Doesn't say who's right or who's wrong. It just means energetically there's a conflict. And, by being the most compassionate person that we can be, each of us, these conflicts don't really mean a whole lot, right? Because we don't focus on them. But there are people out there that project a lot of this energy on whomever they meet. It's a form of, I hate to say attack, but it's almost like they attack people with their energy. And this can have a big effect on sensitive people, empathic people in particular, feel it. That's why empathic people oftentimes tend to be isolated and loners, because they feel this so strongly. Anywhere they go, they feel the energy of all these people around them. And so oftentimes there's more than they can take, so they tend to be loners.
Very interesting. Michael and I have talked about in the past how sometimes, he has such a dynamic presence that he'll find himself being in a place and people are naturally attracted to him. So without delving too much into his personal stuff, so like if you were to look at Michael's aura, I'm picking on you, Michael, I'm sorry about that.
Doesn't matter. Knock yourself out.
Is there a color in his field, or is it because he has such a beautiful heart vibration that people are tuning into that resonance? I'm just curious intuitively, or you could, look at me and say the same thing, I guess.
No, I can look at Michael right now. I can look at you as well. It makes no difference. But with Michael, I see a lot of pink heart energy. And there's different types of heart energy. There's more of a red color. There's a greenish color I've seen. That pink color is more of a broader, compassionate color, I will say. It's more of a heal-the-world type of color, right? And that people are going to be directly attracted to heart energy, bring people in for healing. I have people that come to me all the time. They naturally find their way to me, as have you both, where people need a healing, and they find their way to you. That's an energetic, that's quantum physics at work, right? This energy is seeking out a counterpart. And so that we seek out people like that. So, with Michael, I see a lot of that going on. That would explain people being attracted to him. A lot of intellectual type energy in Michael, a lot of high yellow in his aura, so he's a thinker. But he can also feel. That's that orange color. So, varied color. There's not really good and bad colors. Even if you see red in somebody's aura, it's not necessarily bad. A lot of times it denotes anger being sent at a person. But usually it has a distinct feel to it. I can't even hardly explain. It's almost like it's dark red tinged with black. There'll be black streaks in it. And that's just anger personified, right? That's somebody that's like secretly hating on you. And a lot of times that's what happens. People be in relationships, and they'll be around people, but these people behind their back, I hate to say it, they'll just be like undermining, right? We all have run into people like that.
Exactly.
And
kind of an envious or jealousy kind of thing going on.
There's that spiritual jealousy that you see that rears its ugly head so often. People want to do, they want the gifts. Everyone possesses all the gifts. It's just a matter of tapping into your higher self and allowing. It's all about allowing these things to happen and stepping aside from your lower mind, from your lower intellectual mind, stepping aside a little bit and allowing things, your imagination to run. Imagination is a real thing, right? It's real energy. It's not something that doesn't exist. It exists just like thoughts exist. And by allowing your imagination to open up a little bit, you can bring on miracles within your own life, and you can see that on other people as well.
Wow.
I think that's a wonderful statement, because imagination is I consider it to be one of the 20 elements of personal alchemy, because of its power in your life to change the way you feel and about anything. You can sit down and you can imagine anything for yourself, and I've told people before that, or many times actually, that imagining is really the first step to changing your life. You have to see it in your mind's eye in order to move forward. It's like that foundational thing. If you can't see it, how can you be it? How can you have it, bring it to life? Manifesting begins with your imagination. So that's really, really cool. I had one point early, that's about 20, 25 years ago. I don't know, I went to some particular, I had an aura reading. Actually, there's these things, take pictures of auras. I don't know how they're actually, how valid they really are. But somebody developed it in Europe. But I had a lot of blue at the time. And I think that I've kind of morphed past that. I probably still have some blue, but I had a lot of blue 25 years ago. And as I've changed, I'm kind of thinking that the pink and the yellow is kind of taking more of a center stage to my aura, my field.
I see that too, Michael. And the blue is basically, you can get much deeper into auras. The colors are also associated with some ray energies. Blue being a basic ray of love, believe it or not, is the color blue. We often associate that with green or all that, but we're on a second ray universe. We're on a love universe, right? So blue is very prevalent. But you do kind of go beyond that. I won't say beyond it. Let's just say you focus down into the levels of yourself that you really are. Like you were talking about imagination. And think about it. When we were kids, we imagined this and that. We played with our imaginary friends. We saw people all the time. And we were immediately told not to do that, right? We were told this is bad. Right. Your imagination is invalid. It's just stuff you're making up. Well, that's not true. And when you can get back to that on an adult level, now I don't mean for all of us just to make up, stuff, but on the other hand, you can do that. And how odd is it when you start thinking along certain lines, it just manifests right before your very eyes, right? And it all starts with imagination and us reallowing our imagination to be paired with the basic creative process, which that creative process is in the heart. That creative process is love, which brings everything together into an attractive format. And when things come together, different energies come together into one ball, if you will, then a new third thing is created. That's pure creativity, and that's birth, right? And so we're in the energy of birthing, not only as people, but as a universe, as a planet. Everything, the evolutionary urge is about being reborn. There'll be other times when the evolutionary urge, trillions of years in the future, will be more about power now than it is about love now. But right now we're in a love universe and will be for, somewhere around 300 more trillion years. So we got some time. So
longer than I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go over and over again, and we reach different levels of the spiral, right? We evolve, and what we see today is, oh wow, that's a revelation. Well, 5 years from now, we'll see that. We'll think back on that and say, yeah, that was, but now I'm so far above that. Well, you kind of are, because along with your seeing things differently, your consciousness is expanding. And as it expands, it takes in more of the true reality around us. And so it takes a creative process and an imaginative process in order to bring that about. And so many of us, and people, and it's just true, we are cut off in our creativity. As Michael said, you got to get back to that, right? You've got to get back to that whole creative process where you bring that into your life and imagine in your mind's eye what you want. And it can be the wildest thing, and it'll manifest for sure. You may not notice it at first. You say, well, is that? And then you'll say, wait a minute, that's really what I asked for, and I've got it. And it's right there, right? And it's because you imagined it.
Wow.
Right.
First.
Important.
Scott, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
No, go ahead. No, please, go ahead.
I know, Scott, that you teach classes. So you teach classes in the 7 rays, but you also do a lot with self-knowledge. And Michael and I, kind of delve into this. Now, Michael's a musician. You may not know this, but he's a drummer of unbelievable, accomplishments. And, so there's 7 notes in the musical scale. There's 7 chakras, and some people have said there's 7 senses. And so, and I would love what you were saying about this universal consciousness, because I'm wondering if the 7th sense is actually our doorway to that. And, is there classes or what, how can you teach people to gain more self-knowledge and to actually tap into the God-given gifts that we were given? I know that's a big question.
Well, that's good because, it is. But the universe is divided down into 7s and then to 3s and then to 1, right? But basically there are 7 notes. That's not coincidental. That's part of the universal song, right? And when all those notes are sounded all at one time, then the universe will have stepped up to the next level, whatever it's going to be. The universe will sing
wow.
I got them too. The universe will sing its song to us. It will give us information. Now that's ongoing, and on very different levels. But when you come to people understanding their own selves, for me, when you begin to get an idea of what your own energy levels are, we are 5 senses, right, as you asked about. Mm-hmm. But we're also, there are truly in our universe, there are 7 main senses. The 6th sense, which is now becoming more prevalent, the so-called psychic sense, right? Well, that's the 6th. There's one higher than that, which is pure identification, if you will. Identification with the one. You become the one. And when you're when your level of consciousness has expanded to that level, you have reached total oneness with the universe. It's like when Einstein was talking about the speed of light, and as you approach the speed of light, you take on, unlimited mass. Or in other words, that's why a physical object supposedly can never travel the speed of light, because you're taking on a perfect mass. Well, there's nothing but light in the entire universe. We are made of light. The universe is made of light. And when you approach that speed, if you will, you take on the weight, if you will, of the entire. In other words, you become one with the entire universe. And that oneness is, you can look at it from a mathematical or physical angle as being unlimited mass, right? But as you approach that, this is what's happening. You're approaching the oneness of light, and that's what physical evolution is all about, continuing to approach that oneness. There's what's beyond that, of course. There's something, do we know? There are truly things that at this level of human development are above our level of conscious understanding. That doesn't mean it'll be that way forever, but there are things that we simply can't honor because we don't have the equipment, our consciousness, whether it be physical as well as our spiritual equipment, necessary to understand some of these higher precepts. But that's what evolution is about, bringing us to that point.
A lot of people spend way too much time in the 3D realm anyway, of just the illusion of life and getting all sucked into it. And do you find that there are people that you consult with that have actually been able to move beyond that in a very constructive way in their lives. In other words, elevating their own level of conscious awareness and shifting their own energies?
I do, and that's a good question, because a lot of what I do when I try to work with people using the rays, which we haven't touched on very much here, but basically right now as we stand in our evolutionary development, we're a 5-unit being. We're soul, we're an integrated personality. That's who you were just talking about. We're a mental body, we're an astral or emotional body, and we're a physical body, an etheric body, really. And as you integrate those 3 lower bodies, the etheric, the astral, and the mental body, into one usable conglomerate, that's called a personality, a complete soul-infused personality. And at that point, the soul itself evolves. But so when you meet people that are integrated, is what I call them, they're integrated. They're more able to use all of themselves in a useful whole, instead of a lot of us, and most of us, one time we'll be more on a mental level, another time we'll be more emotional, physical, etc. And our life cycles as we grow up explain that. As we're a child, 1 years 1 to 7, we're almost entirely physical. Not to say that there's not some mental energy there, but we're concentrated on that. We're about our physical world. And these cycles persist throughout our lifetime. So even if you're in your 60s, you're revisiting these cycles, material, emotional, and mental, but on a higher turn of the spiral, you hope. We hope. And I would say everybody is. And so as people get older or reach a certain level of self-enlightenment, I guess you would call it, then they begin to use all these tools all in one conglomerated whole. And that's what you go for. And by understanding your own energy makeup in the form of rays, in other words, then you get to where you're at and what you need. And it makes it more enabled for you to, one, define that, and then make a useful use of it.
Wow.
Okay, that's dynamite, perfectly. Would you find that a lot of the people that become attracted to you are at a point in their lives when they're seeking that elevation in their body?
Absolutely. I get people all the time that I bring under my wing, so to speak. I'm no guru per se. I have knowledge, deeper knowledge maybe than some people, but it's just where it comes from. It comes from allowing my inner self to function, right, and becoming in touch with the highest part of myself of which I'm able. Now, we all have days that are good days and bad days, but days when we're discombobulated, so to speak. But for the most part, by allowing that to happen, then you allow the very, very highest parts of yourself to be usable. And people come to me all the time, well, what can I do to do this? First of all, and I tell this, and you tell everybody this, meditate. Same. They say, well, it's got to be, no, it's meditation. That's what puts you in touch with the highest spiritual point attainable by human beings. But it's a degrees. I say, it's hard to do. It's the hardest thing in the world to find 10 minutes a day to meditate. I don't know why, but it is. But when you do that over time, you're opening yourself up to these higher energies. And by putting yourself, again, into the process of allowing, you're allowing these energies to work. You're allowing your mind to open up. And by that, I mean your consciousness to expand. And as your consciousness expands, it touches higher and higher energies and brings them down into your core center. And as that happens, you naturally attract more of that, and you attract people to you who are looking for that very thing. Like earlier, Michael, you were saying, or Lisa, you were saying that people are attracted to Michael, people are attracted to you. You're a healer, Lisa, and so people are attracted to you when they need something. They feel it on the deepest intuitive level. Now, they're not walking around saying, my intuition tells me to do this. They just do it, and they find themselves here. And we all find ourselves in that way. I'll find myself in places. Now, how did I get here? Why did I go here? And then later it'll be shown to me. It's pretty obvious because my intuition led me there for whatever reason. Lesson, learning, helping. Intuition is not a linear process. It's instantaneous. So people think, I'm thinking, it's an intuitive thought I'm having. No, because if you call it a thought, it's not intuition for one thing. It has a beginning and an end and a process between the two. That's not intuition. Intuition exists in the permanent now, right? The eternal now. All knowledge is always available to us. It's already there. Nothing's going to change with that. It's about us being in touch through our consciousness with these higher levels, these expanded areas of consciousness.
That's fascinating to think about, and you can get caught up in that conundrum about.
Oh yeah,
it is. To some people, you can get kind of like drawn into it, and you can start thinking about it and expanding upon the idea of it, what it means, and it leads to another thing and another thing and another thing. Before you know it, you're like, oh my gosh. But I love what you just explained there, and it's really interesting because I have to sit down in my meditations and allow more of myself to connect to my higher self and higher energies more than I actually do. And I've been meditating for, I don't know, the past couple of decades. And I experience a lot of intuitions. I listen a lot. I'm very connected. I see things and always ask myself, what part of how is this person connected to what I'm manifesting, what I was thinking about, what I was imagining, which is, it's wonderful to go through the day like that when you connect with people and always ask yourself, why did I connect with this person? How can I help them, and how can they help me? How can we help ourselves elevate our consciousness? And what's interesting is when you start, for me, when I have a sense of needing to connect with somebody, even for a brief moment. The other day I was in a store, and I think I might have told you this, Lisa, at one point, or I might have mentioned it in a previous podcast, but I was in a store heading to Target, and my girlfriend, wanted to go into a store just before then because she's never been in there before. And I just followed her in and kind of walked around with her. I wasn't really paying attention to what was there, but I spotted this young lady who happened to be incredibly sunburned. And I happened to have something in the trunk of my car that she could alleviate. I asked her, I said, "Are you really hurting?" And she says, "Oh, yes." And I said, "Well, come with me. If you trust me, come with me, and I've got something for you." And she said, "Oh, okay." So she walked out to the car, and I gave her some sunburn gel that I had manufactured about 8 years ago. And she said, "Oh, my gosh." She says, "This is amazing." And then I pulled out my card to my podcast, and I gave it to her, and I said, "If you're into wanting to know how to create your reality and elevate yourself and really get what you want in life," and I didn't even finish, and she said, "Oh my gosh, you don't know how timely this is for me." And she actually started to cry. I said, "Whoa, hang on." She says, "No, you don't understand." And I didn't ask her for an explanation. It's none of my business. However, in situations like that, I understand that there's sometimes it's not the thing that you think, the initial reason you think you're connected with somebody generally isn't the real reason you're connecting with them. And I always look for the secondary reason. That's what I'm really looking for. Mm-hmm. And it happens really often. It happens very often that when I connect them to a podcast, or I start talking about something with them, or I mention something about them, and they go, "Oh my gosh, you don't know how timely this is for me." And I love it when it happens. I ask in my meditations, I say, let's have this happen a whole lot, because there are a lot of people out there who really are looking for an expansion. They're looking to move beyond where they are and just don't know how. And meditation, as you said, is one of those ways. The first way that I suggest to most people is just sit down and be quiet for 10 minutes. I do it for 40, but some people just can't carve it out. And I say, don't say can't, because that's really a barrier for you doing it. Everybody has. If you daydream for 10 minutes, you're sitting on a public transportation, or you're taking a train to work, or whatever. You're reading something. Instead of reading, just close your eyes and just listen to something, vision something, single-minded purpose is all it is. You can have a form walking. I would meditate when I walk. I would literally just put myself in a state where I was hypersensitive to what was going on around me. I didn't necessarily focus on anything. I just walk, and I'd walk for a couple of miles and just clear my head. And things would pop into my head, and I'd be pulling out my phone, pulling out the notepad, going, I got to write that down. I got to do that. I got to document that because I'll forget it in the next couple of moments. And it's a fun thing. However, I had people tell me that their mind is too busy to meditate, which is really unfortunate. Here's a question I want to ask you. I just want you to I know you've looked at my aura, but I just want you to take a quick look at Lisa, because Lisa is very unique. And I just want to have a sense of what you see with Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa and I have
amazing individual.
Besties for quite a few years now. We met at a seminar in California 22 or 3 years ago. We've been friends, close friends ever since. So there was a special connection between us, always has been. When I look at Lisa's aura, of course, I get a lot of the pink. I get a lot of green in Lisa. She definitely has a lot of empathic healing type energy. That's usually what that indicates for me. Again, she's got the yellow of the intellectual, spiritual energy, if you will, the thinking part. But she's also got that intuitive energy, which is the orange, which I see that on you as well. That's a mix of thinking and intuition together. When you ask about meditating, when I tell them there's a lot of different ways of meditating, just be quiet. So I can't just be quiet. What I would tell people when they start meditating, at first 10 minutes is fine, and visualize anything that you enjoy or whatever, and that's where it's going to lead to other things. When I read someone clairvoyantly, I'm in a form of meditation. So somebody will ask me, how do you know that? So, for instance, I was reading somebody not long ago, and I'm looking at their aura, and I see this beautiful golden retriever sitting at their feet, And I said, I said, you're being lied to. And I said, the golden retriever is wearing a birthday hat. And I was looking at it, and I said, what does this mean? And I'm like,
that's an interesting.
I'm looking at the golden retriever, and it's right there, and I said, wait a minute, he's wearing a birthday hat, and it has one of those things where you blow out where it comes out at you, And I'm thinking, so I'm trying to interpret all this, and the person said, I'm saying, I said, you're going to think this is nutty. It's how it works for me. I said, first of all, you're being lied to by a guy. I said, it feels like to me you're going to a birthday party this week, and the guy's going to be there, and that this is a guy who's not been telling you the truth, but which has kind of been acting like he has. That's the thing blowing outward. He keeps spitting out untruths to you, right? And the guy said, my God. He said, I'm going to a birthday party this weekend, and one of my employees that I've been worried about is going to be there. And I said, well, there you go. And so that's it's about interpretation. So when you meditate, you're essentially doing the same thing. You're providing your imagination, and you're allowing that to come in. Now you direct your visualization, so it's a directed meditation. You're going to a place. But a lot of times that leads to that dreamy state where stuff starts coming in, right, Michael? Where you say, well, this comes in. Lisa, you say you'll be meditating, and stuff will just kind of come into you. You say, well, what does that mean? Don't worry about it. Just let it happen. And that's what's going on is you're in a meditative state. There's different meditative states about. And when I read people, I essentially kind of get in a meditative state when I look at their aura at first. And then the more I've done it over the years, the less I need aura. I just do it because I've been doing it since I was a kid. I like it. That's my comfort zone, right? Looking at the aura. But I don't need it because now I get the point, and I'm being shown and led to this different place. I don't even need it. I just know, and I can just know. I can just start spouting stuff out. And I don't need the aura with me to tell me that, but I insist on it. It's my binky, right? And so
right.
It's my pacifier.
I love it.
And so,
I love it.
So
I love
that's what I look at, but I don't have to have it, and neither does anybody else. But these gifts come about, and the more you use these, like I'm talking about, you talk about clairvoyance, and you start meditating, these gifts begin to happen automatically. I found this over and over, and you automatically begin shifting toward the higher example of the lower spiritual reality, if I will. So clairvoyance is a high thing that that's a very good place to start. But that's on a low end of the. There's so much higher than that. There's intuitive knowledge, right? Sentience, clairsentience, where you don't need a picture in your head. You just know. Now it's nice to have that picture, and it sends me this place and that place. But you don't have to have it, you know. And the more you practice this clairsentience, first of all, you got to allow yourself to believe, well, I'm right. Because for me, it's like, oh, what if you're wrong, or what if you're just total nonsense? No, I don't even go there anymore. So like, I don't care how crazy it sounds, I'm going there. The dog, the golden retriever with the party hat, I'm staying with it, you know. And as you stay with it, it gives the information. Now, why does my intuition feed me that way, or I don't know. Why do I often get symbols of animals, and not always, I mean, not completely, but for the most part, I get little animals that tell me things. I'm really hooked into the animal type world. I don't know, I feel one with that, maybe sometimes more than humanity, I hate to say. And so is that why my intuition uses it? I don't know. Other people's will be different, and that's fine. You find your own level, so to speak, and not level. That implies I'm at a higher level than you are. And so I hate that stuff. No, you find your own comfort zone. You find what works for you, and you go with it, and you allow it, but you allow it without stomping on anybody else's stuff, right?
Oh, I think
that's awesome.
That's so true. And trust is so important. You know, you get something that seems so crazy, and you think, well, why am I saying this? And you really have to trust that. And, you know, I am an intellectual. I like to read. I like to jam a lot of stuff into my brain. And there was a scientist in 1980, John Kramer, who made a really interesting discovery about the senses. And he started looking at, you know, what we think of as reality, and it connects to everything you're talking about, Scott. And what I found so fascinating was he said that our senses are really limited. Our senses only take up 8% of the entire light spectrum. That means 92% of our reality doesn't really exist for us, but it's there. And I think that that's what you're speaking about, like when you go into that quiet space of meditation, you're going into that space that allows you to be in that other 92% of possibilities of reality.
Exactly. That's so true. So true.
Yeah, and I'd like to ask you, because, you know, you didn't, you know, as a child you grew up with these gifts. You know, you didn't always start meditating. You know, you had this very unique type of healing come through you that you've branded as live stream healing, which I would like to mention that you have live stream healing if you're looking to connect with Scott on Instagram right now. I know you're working on your website, so that's the best way if somebody wants to connect with you. But I'd love for you to sort of express like what that was like for you. So, you know, you're in this space of meditation, quiet. You know, how did you start, and how did you tune into that gift, which became live stream healing?
I can tell you, when you talk about being intellectual, so there's the intuitive part, the artistic. Some people call it the artistic. That's not exactly true, but it comes across like that. And then, but when you have both of those energies in one person, like with yourself and Michael and myself, that's kind of unique, but it's not, you know, it allows you to open up to certain gifts. For my own self, I grew up in a town of nothing but scientists. My father was a scientist, very, you know, logical and all that. But they always kind of knew I was different. Then around 7 years old, I had a healing thing happen with a pet. And frankly, my parents never looked at me the same again. And, but I kind of knew, to me, it was like everybody does this, right? But there was an energy I projected out of my Ajna chakra, you know, my third eye chakra, right? And that's where, for me, I take my live stream healing comes from there. Heart-centered, projected out through the Ajna chakra. And that energy is very potent and powerful. There's different ways to move it. You can move it through different chakras in different ways. It can become quite complicated, but it's simple in and of itself. So I began to see that then, but I didn't really know. I knew that, to me, I felt like everybody knew everything that I knew. And whenever I was around people, even as a child, I knew everything. And I don't mean I was a know-it-all. What I mean is I felt everything. And I thought, well, if I can do that about them, then they must know what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling. And that frightened me when I was a kid. I didn't want everybody to know what I was thinking, every little thought I had, right? And so it kind of frightened me.
That.
But as I grew older, you grow into it. And it really wasn't until I was around 28 or 30 that I totally understood what it was like, what it meant to be an empath. I'd always been told that I was an empath before. I'd always picked up on people. But around that time, I began to really allow that to be in my life, right? And once I did, it changed everything for me. Because I would think that I was feeling bad, it was something within me. I didn't realize I was feeling everything else around me, right? And so once I figured that out, it made a lot of difference in my life. And so, when did it start? I guess as a kid, but did I really think of it in terms of meditating? I practiced a little bit of meditation when I was a child. I couldn't do it. I couldn't concentrate. My mind's all over the place. But about, like Michael, about 3 decades ago or 3 now, I became very, dedicated to that. And you don't have to meditate an hour a day sitting in the LeRose position. Get comfortable anywhere. Close your eyes. 10 minutes, 7 to 10 minutes to start. Visualize something you like, a waterfall or a lake or anything, a seashore, whatever, and just visualize that, and then allow your mind to expand beyond that. And that will take you into deeper and deeper states of meditation, which will also include feelings and non-visualization in the traditional sense.
I think it's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
There's such a unfortunately, there's this connotation when you say the word meditation. However, it is, if we can get our listeners to embrace it just for that 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes initially, it is it's an energizing state. When you come out of it, you just feel such great energy, and it can be done anywhere. It can be done a couple of times a day. For people who work in an office, just go in the restroom for 10 minutes. Go to a quiet place.
By theosophical theory, anyway, the soul, our individual soul, is also part of the total group of souls which constitute humanity, right? And that constitutes a yet a larger thing. But our soul is always in meditation 100% of the time. And you could say that our soul has meditated us into existence. Now, as human beings, we'll eventually reach a point where instead of picking apart during the day to meditate, we will essentially be in a meditative state 24/7. But that's a ways down the road, and that'll be when people have expanded past the lower levels of the mental plane and started entering the upper levels of abstract mental plane and into the intuitive level. But that's coming. That's a thing that's going to happen eventually. I mean, millions of years perhaps, or let's say, but it will. It is part of the goal. So we will. So the more you meditate, great. But like Michael said, it's no big deal. You will feel better if you do it. I guarantee anybody, you will feel better. And if you get consistent at it, consistency, like anything, is what you need. Try and do it every day. If you miss a day, all right, don't beat yourself up. Just go back the next day and start again. And with that consistency, you will notice an overall better feeling. And a higher touch with yourself. Yeah, it is. I believe it. I totally believe it.
I love it.
I use it.
Yeah, I make time for it. Good.
You make time for it. It's a part of your self-care, and that's a really big, for me, a lot of times when it sounds funny, but I thought being in the shower is almost like a meditation for me. I get so many ideas and information. I think it's like there's no I don't know. I close my eyes and I sort of go into the space, and sometimes I think, oh my gosh, how long have I been in the shower? You're just letting the water pour down on me. And sometimes the meditation for me is just walking in the park. I don't have my phone on. I don't have anything. I'm just in that space, and it's just a very clearing thing for me. People, you don't necessarily have to, as you said, Scott, you don't have to sit in the lotus position. There's different places that you can do that, and whether you listen to an audio that guides you. Some people like that.
Yeah.
Do you have any other exercises or things that you could suggest for people as a starting point?
Well, obviously it begins with meditation, but there are visualization exercises. Force yourself to visualize certain scenes, and I teach some of those, and to add more and more detail. Like force yourself to create a garden, and this garden has a garden wall around it. And as you begin to get better, human beings are inherently able to visualize, but a lot of people have had that kind of turned off in them, right? They say, well, I can't visualize, I can't see. Yes, you can. You got to practice. Sometimes it's frustratingly slow. But as you begin to visualize more, then you're going to start being able to see things more, meditate more easily. And more importantly, though, you're going to be getting more and more into touch with the energy of group consciousness. And once you tap into that, then you've tapped into the ultimate energy in our universe, right? The energy of the one. And again, it's all about allowing to do that. Working on using live stream healing, I teach people how to project that energy through their bodies in different ways, which allow them to project it not only upon themselves, but in the environment around them and onto another person if that person be willing. And if they're not, and you try it, doesn't matter, their soul is going to protect them, so to speak, right? But and your intentions are honorable. Let's say if there were bad intentions, it would be something different. But we won't go there. The so-called dark forces, black magic, whatever you want to call it. I mean, there are two sides. There's a duality in our universe, as we know. The second ray of love, wisdom, is a dual ray. But when you start practicing those things and start practicing projecting energy in a loving way, first upon yourself and then around the environment around you, you'll find it becomes more and more natural to you, and there'll become a need to be around not only people that will accept that, right, and agree with that, but that your energy will match theirs and you'll feel more comfortable, right? Because you're going to be in the space of love. You're going to be in the space of allowing. And when you are there, you're just definitely just going to feel better as a person. You're going to feel more connected. You're going to feel like you're accomplishing more. Life is going to be life. You're going to have upsets, ups and downs, of course. That's not going away. But it's how you think about that, how you act within that, that's going to make the difference. So that's what I would say.
Beautiful. That is awesome.
Yes. So you want people to do it with ease and joy, and really and embrace it, and have fun with it too. I think that
exactly.
I think that
you should have fun.
So serious.
If it's going to be a chore, where you got to get, I don't know. That's just not my nature. I like to have fun with stuff.
Yeah. It's as with anything, you have to have a positive. Right. Positive perception of meditation would go a long way to being to creating the intention to do it more often. And when you're really
that are driven by different ray types. So if you're having heart surgery, I want my doctor to be a very focused individual. I want the person.
Right. Oh yeah.
But they're having fun they're having fun in their own way. But if you were to look at it and say, this person is not much fun. Well, yeah, they are in their own way. But that's what you want, right? Heart surgery.
I agree with that 110%.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, Scott, would you like to share with our audience members, how the best way to reach you and the different types of are you going to be doing some classes in the near future? I would love to participate, and I'm sure Michael.
I am. I'm trying to put some classes together now. where I live at and get a forum ready to do that, where I can first do it online and then even some personal instruction. If people want to reach me, they can, easiest way is through my phone number, right, 770-596-9656, or Scott@underprotection.com, or Scott@lifestreamhealing.com, or gmail.com. They can pull me up on Instagram, and it'll give my particulars and how to contact me, how to message me. And you can pull my name up, or you can just go to Lifestream Healing on Instagram. And
I just pulled it up under. I just followed you on Instagram. Very nice stuff. So you'll see that.
Yeah.
It just did that. Lifestream Healing under Instagram. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Great posts.
Yeah. And so anybody can contact me that way. I mean, I do sessions remote, obviously, via phone or Zoom. And if they want to talk to me about it, what's entailed in that, I'll be glad to speak with them.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
You've been wonderful, though. I gotta say, he's done wonders for me and helped me kind of understand where I am, and I know you can do that for other people, just to kind of give them a sense of clarity. It definitely increases your self-confidence and in moving forward in life.
Thank you. Yes, it does.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. You know, I think sometimes, you think about a echo in a canyon and what you put out and the vibrations that come back, and sometimes, it's like that sound that we put out, or the things we don't really think about the impact that it has, and it takes somebody like Scott to say, hey, you know what? You need to pull that back, or you're being too open-hearted, or you have all these gifts. Why aren't you using them? And I think that's what is such a gift with you, Scott. I mean, you come from such a loving place, and you're so kind in everything that you do, and just to I think that it's such a gentle gift that you have, and it's really wonderful that you have come to share it with so many people. So I want to thank you so much for being on. And I don't know if you want to, oh my gosh, it's just such a delight, and I can't wait until we can have you back, because you really, to be able to transform your energy into something. We talk about having a brilliant future, and really what it is that you want to create, and to be given the gifts, and to be able to really cultivate your own gifts and have that self-knowledge is phenomenal. And so grateful to both of you for all the love and light that you have shared with me during this time, and also throughout my lifetime that I've known you both. So and our audience, I'm just so grateful for the time that you share with us as well. And I'll let Michael sign off today. And Scott, if there's anything else you'd like to add?
No, just thank you both for allowing me to speak and talk with you guys, and I look forward to perhaps doing it again soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. The only thing I'd have to say is that there's been a lot of nuggets that have been shared within this hour, and I would encourage our listeners to go back to connecttolove.com, connect2love.com, if you want to share this show with someone who could truly benefit from it, and the information that Scott has disseminated in this program. Go to Connect to Love the podcast, and listen to this and share the episode with others. There's a lot of really good stuff here, and I definitely appreciate you, Scott. Appreciate you, Lisa, and I wish you all the most amazing life possible for yourselves. Imagine that. Imagine things that you would never in your meditations. Imagine the highest and best you, and the highest and best life for yourself. Okay? Until next time.
Yes,
Thank you.
Be well.
All right. Thank you.
Be well. Bye-bye.